Welcome to The Bridge, the official podcast for the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Pharmacy Patients Program. The Patients Program is the bridge between the community and researchers. The Patients Program created this partnership to help researchers listen to the community's voice in order to build a bridge to an effective learning healthcare community. Here's your host, Rodney Elliott.
I am excited to talk to one of Patients Program's newer team members, so to speak. A guy that he's kind of more like behind the scenes guy. So, a lot of stuff that we do here at the Patients Program, people have a lot of hands in it. Today, we're here to talk about a project that the Patients Program has been working with our community members, and Joe is a key integral part to that program. If anybody knows about the Patients Program, the programs we work on, the projects we work on, I would say, so to speak, we have acronyms for everything. And this one is no different. So, Joe, I want to talk to you about the SHOW project. But before we get out and talk about the SHOW project, can you just let people know what SHOW stands for?
Yeah, it's called Shining the Spotlight Wide. It's really trying to, just like everything that we do at the Patient Program, really focusing continuous engagement.
Yep.
And using those continuous engagement ideas, those principles in dissemination, in sharing our message, the message that other researchers, community advisors are trying to get out. So it's really bringing that idea of continuous engagement.
When we talk about dissemination, getting information back out into the community so people understand it, that's key. That's super important. I can count on both hands how many times I've been out in the community and I've had to explain or re-explain a document, a flyer, or something to the community members because it just wasn't in the language that they understand. Joe, can you talk to our audience about how important it is to put messages out, to send literature out, to send emails, or just to communicate with non-pharmacy or non-research people, like the importance of put that information out in a way they understand. But also, I need to correct myself. It also works for our researchers as well. We need to put information out, long story short, so people understand it. How important is that, Joe?
When you talk about communication in any partnership, any relationship, is so important. So, continuing to communicate with people, communicate in a way, that's what we call it plain language. And
there you go.
Not dumbing it down. It's not, being condescending or insulting. It's like, this is very simply what we would like to do. Asking, our community partners, our patient advisors, asking them, what would you like to do? And really putting it in simple terms. And, there's just lots of different ways, proven ways, evidence-based ways of training that it helps when you're giving something back. It has graphics that are easy to understand, that are eye-catching. And it's just that continuous engagement, and a lot of engagement is communication, and it's just being consistent and not trying to be too smart with it, just making it very straightforward and plain, and you'll get a lot more interaction, a lot better feedback, and you'll get that reciprocal engagement from people when you're speaking to them at a respectful level that they understand.
The reciprocal engagement, continuous engagement is key because we want people to ask questions. I know I do when I go out in the community. This is what the Patients Program is all about, and to be quite honest, definition of community engagement, reciprocal engagement, or consistent engagement. We have to have that in the work we do with the Patients Program because we want to build those relationships. But Joe, you hit that nail on the head when you're talking about sustaining those relationships. Joe, are there any relationships since you've been in your previous role or your new role now that from the dissemination tools, from the SHOW project, have those relationships been built, sustained? And then be quite honest, if you have some that haven't, can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, coming from the Patients Professors Academy, we, consistently every Friday send out in some form or fashion. We've actually had a really nice, upfit. One of newer team member than me, Trelisa Colby, has really updated the newsletter. But every Friday during the academy, outside the academy, send these are things that are happening in the patients program, like Patients Day, positions, but also here is a calendar of events that are coming up that might be of interest to. Here are some articles or other things that we're doing to attract more attention. So it's something that we do, every Friday, of making sure that people are informed, and get a lot of, get some responses to people. So those newsletters are really helpful. Really, it helps to know what's going on. We can be informed. I think when it comes, and there are plenty of people that went through, that graduated the Patients Professors Academy that don't have as much of a to it. And, I think that's just sometimes where people are, is that they may be receiving the information and they may not be taking any action, but they're still receiving it. And, I think maybe a success story we had this past Patients Professors Academy is that someone that I hadn't really had any interaction with since they graduated recommended 2 or 3 people to join the academy. And the people that were recommended didn't even know each other. So, I think it's just that consistency, not jamming their inbox every day. It's like I said, I try and make it very consistent. Once a week, you're going to get an email from me. If you get another one, it's usually something to an individual, or it's something that is, a quick turnaround. So that's a little more emergent. But yeah, it's just that consistency. And when people email me, is getting back to them as quickly as possible. So.
One of the terminologies we all use at the Patients Program is meeting the community where they are, and whether it's physically going out to their events and engaging with them, or whether it's sending information, via flyer, via pamphlet, via newsletter. We understand that the Patient Program, people interpret and receive and also interpret information differently. What are some of the things that you learn when it comes to community engagement, or you learn when it comes to staying consistent with our community members, or, to be quite honest, whoever we engage on both sides, from the researcher side as well?
In general, I'm kind of a novice to, health, public health, things like that. That's not my background, but it's more in training, more in community engagement. I thought that you're a doctor or you're a researcher, you come up with a great idea and everyone just automatically adopts it. That there is that is absolutely not true. And I've come to realize that it takes a lot of work to go from what you're doing in the lab or what you're doing in your community, like new ways to engage, new ways to get people activated and interested in health. It takes a lot of work to get that idea from one little community to a much wider space.
Yes.
And when we're just talking about that plain language, there were a ton of dissemination toolkits out there. The like 50 to 80 to 120 pages of this is how you do all this. And we're talking about that plain language. I mean, even for me, when I see all right, this is a 120 page document, my eyes start to cross, because it's such a huge endeavor. And now, I'm a community member, I want to get this good work out, and now I have to go through this whole process. I think what we really want to do, this continuous engagement and marrying continuous engagement to dissemination, is that you can do that dissemination in a much easier way as long as you're communicating. There are simple ways to make sure that you're getting that message out to people by working those relationships, those partnerships, that continuous engagement that you've worked on, that you can disseminate, that you can share those ideas, those practices that show a lot of promise to other people, and not have to go through this really super dense document and that was part of what show was about, is what are some of the best practices? Let's cut to the heart of how we get the word out. And again, that's that plain language. Let's really get down to what's the best way to do it. And that was partially, let's review a few different dissemination toolkits, which ones are the most helpful to us, but also actually talking to people that are in the community. or who are patients, like if I'm receiving this information, what's going to be the most effective way for you, an organization or a researcher, to give me that information? And that was the other part of show, was this kind of dissemination think tank. Like researchers, were able to come and say, I'm trying to figure out how to do dissemination the best way possible. And they got input from our community members, from people that were involved in show.
In my role, I do a lot more engaging with the community than I do with the research side, because when I explain who I am and what we do with the patients program, putting it in plain language, I basically say we, the patients program, sit in the middle of the research community, academia community, and we sit in between. On the other side of that is the actual community, meaning the neighborhoods, meaning the stakeholders, the folks who have those lived experiences and are willing to come to the table and share them. When show was being developed and we're talking about how to disseminate information, a lot of times it may sound like we're talking about how do the doctors, how do the researchers, how do the academia get the information to the community? Okay, that is part of it. But in your experience of working with both sides, Joe, can you tell us a little bit, or share a little bit stories from the researcher's side, from the academia side? What are some of the things that they learned throughout this process with show? Because again, they come up with these ideas, they come up with these projects, and boom, it's going to help the community. But what they really don't understand is sometimes we put them in rooms or in Zooms with community members that have strong opinions that say, no, Dr. So-and-so, that won't work. We got to try another way. So how has the researcher side, or how has the academia side received this show project?
Yeah, I think, it was, we had one researcher who I think you're familiar with, who was a part of our first Patients Professors Academy cohort. And she was working with communities in Wisconsin, and she really wanted some input from our show participants of, kind of what we're saying, like, how often should I be communicating with them?
Gotcha.
What should I be telling them as the project goes along? The research, sometimes the research can take years, and it's keeping that consistency of when are the communication points? When should I be doing this? And yeah, I think researchers, if you can at least convince them to come into the room, I think they get something valuable out of it, because they're learning a perspective that they're not seeing, that they're coming up with the research. It's sound, it's very rigorous, but when it comes to how am I going to get it out to the community, or the community members asking, well, what's the point of this? Like,
What's the point? Yeah.
How is it going to improve the health of our community or another community? Like,
What's the benefit?
Yeah, what's the benefit? But like, even if there's a benefit, how are you making sure that we know that that's a benefit?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really laying that out. And I think that sometimes just exactly that I came up with this great research and now everyone's going to adopt it. It takes steps, and it takes intentional steps to get that message out. And I think our research partners that have been involved in that realize that continuous engagement is very important, is that as the research evolves, as the research ends, that's not where the relationship ends. Any partnerships, any relationships that you formed with the community, with advisor, it has to continue. And that was really the cornerstone of show, of saying continuous engagement works for dissemination. That dissemination is just an element of continuous engagement, that you should be continuing to engage, because I think it leads to more research, it leads to more innovation.
Yeah, some of our partners that I've been lucky to meet and engage with, and to be quite honest, make a phone call or send an email, and they're ready and eager to participate in whatever the patients program has going on, has either stemmed from a relationship that was created before I got here or soon after I got here, and they're still along this journey with the patients program. It's because of the continuous engagement. It's because we found a way to meet them where they are. It's because through bi-directional learning, whether it's through a focus group, whether it's do a couple Zoom sessions, or to be quite honest, right here on this platform we have with the Bridge is, again, we're finding ways to stay connected with our community in a way they understand, in a way they can leave with their questions answered, and to be quite honest, feel comfortable coming back, asking us the easy or hard questions, and us finding that connection. And from the researcher side, when they come out to our events as well, when they come out or when they hear about the Bridge, or to be quite honest, when they want to get on the Bridge, or when they want to share their story, to me, I feel like we're still finding ways to do this continuous engagement, and it's not one template. Why is it important? From your standpoint as one of the architects, again, behind the show project, why is the show project important? And again, I want to kind of give it from two lenses, from that researcher side and from that community side, and then like tie it all together and tell us why the Patients Program felt this was important.
Yeah, and I think one thing I really want to point out, and this is maybe it kind of straddles the line in the question, is that from our work in show, it led to another an opportunity for one of our advisors, Sneha Dave, of Generation Patient, to gain start a project with PCOR, with the Patient Centered Outcomes Research Institute, for her own research, or working on a particular program that was funded. For me, there's no good reason to not try and build these long-standing, continuous partnerships.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know where it's going to lead. As long as you are, that kind of the mutual benefit, that mutual communication, that if you're an active researcher, I mean, there's going to be more opportunities to work with the community in different ways. If you're a community member, there's going to be more opportunities for you to give your input, to actually seek out more benefits for your community, to learn about advancements in health, and also to really make sure that other people that are doing research do it in the right way, that are actually working with your community instead of studying your community. And like I said, the goal was really to focus on dissemination, but really it's just another element of that continuous engagement, that by really embracing that idea of continuous engagement, that after the research is over, the partnership isn't over, that we're going to share with you what we learned and how it can take us to the next step. Because communities change, research agendas change, but if you have that as your ethos, or like I said, that cornerstone, that we're going to continue to engage, that dissemination becomes much easier, because you know exactly who to talk to. If you have questions, or I'm trying to get the word out and it's not working, you can talk to the community that can help you. If you're the community, you're getting the kind of attention from research and academia that you deserve, which is letting you know what's going on, what happened with that research, what was the upshot of it, and it really comes to forming those partnerships. And I think we've demonstrated there's a lot of benefit to it, to both sides, to everyone involved. So.
Yeah, to both sides. It's just me speaking. I think from the feedback from the research and academia, I think they found a level of accountability that they're happy to be charged with when they work with the Patients Program. And from the community standpoint, I think it's giving them a little bit of confidence to have a little bit more control and to say so in their health, for them and for their community. And for the Patients Program, again, to be that bridge or be that connector, those are kind of the shining moments when you have long days at work, or when you have to, plan an event and, not know who's going to come, how many people's going to attend. Some things you just don't know until you actually do those things. So I know I've been at an event, and again, the testimony I shared about the person no longer with that company and didn't even know she was coming, but now I've been reconnected with that organization. There have been researchers that come to Patients Day, and even before the event starts, are trying to get on the books for next year's Patients Day, because they want to be in that space. Show gives people from both sides, the opportunity to be in that space of continuous engagement. And kudos to you, Joe, and the team for putting that project together. And again, shining your light wide, because, you know, you have to shine it wide when you're talking about research, when you're talking about continuous community engagement. And in that wide light, there's so many jewels out there on both sides, so many relationships that are built, that are sustained, and that all, you know, come together in the end to try to provide a great space to learn from each other. I think I can't harp on that enough. Whether I'm attending a meeting or sitting on the meeting, I know during the PPA, when I attended some of those breakout sessions, it's great to see rooms in Zoom where you have people from all different backgrounds sharing their story, sharing their testimony, but we found a way to kind of guide those conversations so it's coming to an end result, or what can we do next, or like how can we improve? Asking the real questions. You're asking the questions that need to be asked, and both sides are having the safe space to give their response. So again, kudos to the show cohorts.
I think that people are doing dissemination sometimes better than they think, because they're, you know, they're communicating. They're you know, sending out a newsletter. I mean, that's part of it. I think it's kind of demystifying this idea of dissemination. I mean, there needs to be, you know, efforts to get the word back out to a community, to the people that should hear the message. But I think people are doing it. I think when we've worked with community members, they're like, well, I don't do dissemination. Or some community organization. It's like, well, are you sharing the things that you're doing? It's like, well, yeah, it's like, then you're doing it.
You're doing it, yes.
Maybe there's more effective ways to do it. Maybe there's other ways to get attention or to really get that word out, but you're doing it. It's just, we have this fancy long word that makes it seem like not everyone has the ability or is doing it well. So I think when we think about it as sharing the story or as this continuous engagement, I think it demystifies something that can seem a little foreign, I guess.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, you got to be innovative nowadays. Like, don't get me wrong, the bulletin board still works in the community center. Yes, people do see that. The newsletter does work as well. The trifold pamphlet work. But if you have a podcast, or if you have social media, or resources to that, like, those are ways now dissemination is changing and can be a tool in your tool bag, because you show up to a job and you got and you're a guy, a contractor. You got a tool bag. You got a pickup truck out front with all the tools in it. You just never know what you're gonna have to use when you get into that building or to that home. When it comes to community engagement, or when it comes to engaging research folks, academia, and the community, you have to have a vast tool bag. And it's good to see that show is shining a light, so people can see that. So, yeah. Well, Joe, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate you joining us here on The Bridge.
Thank you for listening to The Bridge podcast. To learn more about the Patience Program, visit our website at www.patience.umaryland.edu.